Hi everyone. So this week I did my presentation on the COVID-19 pandemic because the COVID-19 pandemic ranks as one of the biggest global crises of contemporary times, thus requiring quick and efficient public leadership responses. And this presentation examines the crisis, its effect on different sectors, and the essential role leadership plays in handling short-term and long-term aftermaths, emphasizing the value of capable leadership during emergencies. What I'll be talking about is what the crisis is, people impacted, length of the event, what services, etc. were impacted. The timeframes will be 3 minutes, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, and then a conclusion. All right, so like I said, I did mine on COVID-19. Public administration leadership managed healthcare systems and economies under the spread of SARS, the virus also known as COVID-19. Public administration leadership had to lead public health management alongside economic stability and essential service continuity during the crisis. Let's see. All right, next. How many people estimated to be impacted? More than 704 million confirmed COVID-19 cases were reported worldwide between April 2025, while the virus directly killed more than 7 million people. And according to the World Health Organization, they estimated the comprehensive COVID-19 death count, including excess mortality, at 19.1 million to 36 million. How long will the event and aftermath continue? These infections first emerged late in 2019 before reaching their maximum spread across mid-2021, while additional infection waves continue to affect the population. Public health, economic recuperation, and social transformation persists as long-term effects that challenge the global human community. All right, the services, industries, and commerce that were impacted. So the pandemic affected numerous sectors. One is being healthcare. Hospitals and healthcare systems were overwhelmed, requiring urgent leadership in managing resources and personnel. Another one would be the economy. Widespread unemployment, business closures, and disruptions to global supply chains led to significant economic downturns. Third would be in education. Schools and universities transitioned to remote learning, creating challenges for students, educators, and families. And finally, commerce. Retail, hospitality, and tourism industries faced severe disruptions, while e-commerce saw significant growth. All right, this time frame is the 3 minutes, so the vantage point is going to be a civilian witness. There was no formal leadership structure at the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak in the public location. The chapter 1 concept I used was formal versus informal leadership. And formal leadership is appointed correctly, and informal leaders tend to develop when situations are unanticipated. The supporting article I used for formal and informal leadership roles was Civil Society Leadership, Interaction with Political Leadership and the Local Development by Potlicka. When formal leadership systems cannot work in a crisis, informal leaders often appear to help with significant tasks. Such leaders, though without official titles, are trusted by their people or groups, allowing them to organize, control activities, and give guidance speedily. A crisis often needs this type of leadership early on to hold things together and help messages get through when a system is still adjusting. This demonstrates that including non-official leadership is important for success in crisis management and for the development of communities. So the application for this would be from the beginning, leaders without formal roles showed how adaptable and non-official leading can be in times of danger. The chapter 2 concept that I used was achievement-oriented leadership. This is they are driven by creating high aspirations and keeping up the excellent work despite stress. The supporting article I used was Holacracy and Crisis Management, Leveraging Self-Organization for Effective Crisis Response and Organizational Resilience. And in the article, the authors discuss that this leadership style inculcates a feeling of purpose for workers when times are unclear. The application would be even people who urged others to stay away and safe during an attack displayed achievement-oriented thinking, forming a helpful order in confusion. All right, the next interview is 3 days. This can be from the point of a local public health officer. The chapter 3 concept that I used was Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership. And Van Wort's research discusses how, according to Hersey and Blanchard, an effective leader adjusts their approach based on how ready and skilled their team members are. Being flexible, leaders can offer team members the level of leadership they require, changing their actions to match the changes in the crisis. The model clarifies that there's not one leadership method for every situation. Instead, someone should assess the follower's motivation and ability to deal with the situation well. Adaptability is essential since circumstances can change very fast during the COVID-19 pandemic. The supporting article I used was Situational Leadership Readiness, and the authors explain that while a supportive style is necessary for better teams, a direct approach is called for with others. And the application would be messages sent by local leaders were modified in response to how much fear was in the community and how well medical help was arranged, shifting from directing people to helping them. The chapter 4 concept that I used was change master theory. As later explained by Van Wart, change masters look ahead for change, create it, and settle it within the organization. And the supporting article I used was in irregular situations like the COVID-19 pandemic, leaders must actively handle changes and guarantee that messages are clear, according to Hussain et al. In their article, Leadership and Organizational Change Management in Unpredictable Situations in Responding to COVID-19 Pandemic. Application. So in the first 72-hour stretch, local health regulators put the lockdown in effect and explain the changes clearly, showing traits required of change masters. All right, so the next time interval is 3 weeks, and this is going to be from the vantage point of a state emergency coordinator. The chapter 5 concept that I used was self-managed teams, and according to Van Wart, letting teams decide locally supports fast responses. Supporting article, Mekania and Bezzi's article, Holacracy and Crisis Management, Leveraging Self-Organization for Effective Crisis Response and Organizational Resilience, state that self-managed structures and holacracy support the organization's recovery during crisis. Application. The state started letting emergency crews respond as needed, cooperating to track cases and organize logistics with very little top-down supervision. And the chapter 6 concept that I used was ethical leadership as moral management. And according to Van Wart, moral management is the most important element of ethical leadership, emphasizing transparency and fairness. Supporting article, the article by Markey et al. Titled Cultivating Ethical Leadership in the Recovery of COVID-19 stresses that ethics and leadership help improve trust and spirit among frontline workers. And the application, within 3 weeks, ethical leadership ensured that PPE was shared equally and that mental health help was available to staff. All right, the last time interval is 3 months. This is going to be from the point of the Federal Task Force Director. The Chapter 7 concept I used was Complexity Leadership Theory, which explains how organizations change in response to complex settings. Supporting article, Ulbian's article, Complexity, Leadership, and Followership, Change Leadership in a Changed World, believes that leaders should support innovation and teamwork among different system parts. Application. In early 2020, the federal government collaborated with private companies to make and roll out vaccines among important partners. And the Chapter 8 concept I used was the Leadership Action Cycle. Separating leadership into actions and cycles, Van Wart points out that checking your environment, carrying out actions, and stopping to reflect are all necessary. The supporting article I used was Aurea and De Smet's article, Leadership in a Crisis, responding to the coronavirus outbreak and future challenges. emphasizes that successful leaders keep switching between acting and checking their actions. Application. After 3 months of the pandemic, successful leaders adjusted their strategies to match updates on infections and rates of public compliance. Conclusion. So good leaders throughout the pandemic had to be flexible, responsible, creative, and quick to respond as things changed. This presentation uses Van Wort's ideas and additional literature to demonstrate how crisis leadership progresses and involves both set rules and actions taken on the spot. And thank you for listening. All right, that's my presentation, and thank you for watching.